Hello, hello. You're welcome to the Overcoming Infertility podcast. So, we are continuing the series on prayer, and we're looking at some particular prayers. And in today's episode, we'll be looking at Hannah. Hannah's story is a relatively popular one, and even if it's not something you have heard of or you're familiar with, it's something that I can really relate with, and a lot of people on the journey can relate. So, let's go straight into the scripture. So Hannah arose after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child. Then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. But Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him. And she said, Let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. Then they arose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked for him from the Lord. So this reading is from 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 9 to 11, verse 13, and verses 15 to 20. And it's the New King James Version. I love the story of Hannah because what the Lord did by including her story in his word is that he picked somebody just like you or me. You know, this not Abraham and Sarah. She was just, I would imagine, the average woman, the average married woman. And maybe not even average, so to speak, because in those days, by this time, the Israelites were sort of doing whatever it was they wanted to some degree. Her husband had another wife who had many children. She was in a precarious state because if you didn't have children and if you did not have male children, you wouldn't have an inheritance in that family. So Hannah was in a bad spot. Hannah was all by herself. She was all alone in that situation. That's what I like about the Lord allowing her story to be told, because she sounds just like you and I. She was in bitterness of soul. She was in anguish. She was in pain. The kind of pain that is not physical. It surpasses the physical. Because she did not have any children. Everything was at stake. She turned to the only person, the only one who gives children. That's God. And she poured out that bitterness, that pain, that anguish, that complaint, as she called it. She poured it out in the place of prayer. So don't think that the place of prayer, because this series is on prayer, and prayer is about communicating with the Lord. And as much as you and I like to have very spiritual prayers, whatever that means, very good prayers, predictable prayers, average prayers, man, there's some prayers that if it's really coming from the depth of your soul, it's difficult to articulate. And when you do articulate, you articulate it the way it is, which is that you are in pain, which is that maybe you're sick, you have a medical condition that's preventing you from having children. Maybe it's your situation, you're in a polygamous setup. Maybe your husband has gotten somebody by the side, or maybe, he's under pressure to do so. Could be anything. As varied as we are is as varied as our circumstances could be. But the bitterness and the anguish of soul is very relatable. So feel free, if you haven't before, using Hannah's example, not just because I'm saying so, to pour out your heart to the Lord in the place of prayer. The tears and the crying may not even necessarily be physical, but you're crying out to the Lord. Don't waste your cry. Don't let it just be crying in your heart. Cry out to the Lord. Pour out your complaints to Him. Call on Him. He's the only one that can save. In the place of prayer, pour out your complaint. What is your complaint? I've been married for 2 years. I don't have any child. What is your complaint? Oh, I'm in so much pain every month. Every month. My period is so painful. It's such a bitter reminder that I still don't have any child. What is your complaint? I have these fibroids. I've had surgery for them. They grew back. Complaints and bitterness and pain have their place. I know we've shared, and I know many of us know, you come into the presence of the Lord with thanksgiving in your heart. Come before Him with praise, with music, with singing, with dancing. But there's also the place where if there's no music or dancing in your heart, it's anguish and it's pain. You still come to the Lord. You lay all your burdens at His feet. You tell Him what your worries are. You tell Him what your problem is. You ask Him to solve it. Because He's the only person who can. He's the only one that can hear the cry of your heart. He's the only person that can hear, and He's the only person that can answer. So Hannah poured out her anguish and her pain, and then she made a vow and said that she would give her child to the Lord if the Lord gave her a child. In making her petition, Hannah was smart enough to, perhaps she saw that, hey, the Lord actually needs priests. It's just this Eli, or it's just this Eli and 2 of his sons, and we're all here feasting. Maybe they need more priests. They need more workers. They need more people in God's temple. Maybe. But either way, she did make a vow to the Lord and said, Lord, if you give me a child, I'll give him back to you. All the days of his life he will serve you. I believe that God needed Hannah to come to the place where she's like, God, give me a child and I'll give the child back to you. I want us to focus on certain points. The first key point is that Hannah expressed herself to the Lord. She unburdened herself in the place of prayer. She cried in anguish. She cried out to the Lord. She let her pain out in the place of prayer. So if we need to do the same, the example shows us that we can. The second thing is she made a vow and said, this child will belong to you. I put it to you that every child already belongs to God. You need to be conscious of the fact that the Lord gives children, and He knows you, and He knows the child He's going to give to you. There's no coincidence. He has a specific child for you, and it's no coincidence that you're going to be the mother of the child or the children He's going to give to you. The Lord needs to know that you're committed to bringing up that child in the way they ought to go, and bringing up that child in His house, bringing up that child in His ways. So maybe infertility is what brought you to the stage where you would actually say, I'll bring up this child and train him up in the way of the Lord. Because some people otherwise would not. Perhaps if she bargained with the Lord and said, give me a child, I'll give him back to you. And the third point I would like to look at is the fact that Eli agreed with her and prayed that the Lord would answer her prayer. The fourth and another point I'd like us to note is that she went away and was no longer sad. Oh, Hannah went away and was no longer sad. Her countenance changed. And that tells me that she believed the Lord had heard her. She believed she had received the answer to her prayer. Why else would her countenance change? She believed that when Eli agreed with her, it was done. So she didn't wait until she went away, went back home, was known by her husband. She didn't wait to count months and weeks. She knew from the place of prayer. Like some of the other prayers we've looked at on this podcast, and the general pattern of prayer in the Word is that the Lord hears prayers. The Lord answers prayers. Your words and your desires and your petitions don't go unanswered. They don't go unnoticed. They don't fall on deaf ears. The Lord sees you. The Lord hears you. He's made a promise. He keeps it. You make a promise like Hannah did. Be sure to keep it because the Lord answers prayer. So how the story ends is that the Lord remembered her, as the Word likes to put it. And in the process of time, she had Samuel. And for anybody else, anybody that reads the story, later on, she brought the child to the temple. After she had weaned him, she literally gave him to the Lord. It's not like now where if you have a child, it's not like you're going to take the child to any temple to literally give him back to the Lord. It's more figurative, but it's perhaps even more necessary and more important now than ever to decide to train up the child in the way that the child ought to go when the Lord gives you your child and gives you your children. If the Lord is faithful in fulfilling his promises to you, you should also be faithful in your stewardship of that promise. Pray like Hannah if you must. Pray like Hannah if you will. Pour out your hearts. Pour out your complaints. Pour out your bitterness. And the point is, pour it out and leave it there. Believe the Lord's promise. Make your own promises if you want to, but be sure you keep them. I advise actually that your yes be yes and your no be no. Believe that the Lord has heard your petition and he has answered you. And let your countenance change. Once you have unburdened yourself in the place of prayer, his own burden is easy and his yoke is light. Take on his own burden and his own yoke. Let your countenance change. Put on the garment of praise. Remove the spirit of heaviness. And let your trust in the Lord, your faith in the Lord be steadfast. Keep it alive in the place of prayer. Keep it alive in the study of his word. And in the process of time, it will come to pass, just like it did for Hannah. So pray, my sisters. This also applies to men. Every person's story in the Bible is an example to us, regardless of gender. We're all human beings going through the human condition. So, my brothers and my sisters, pray like Hannah if you must, pray like Hannah if you will. Trust that the Lord has done what he said. In the process of time, it will come to pass. And believe me, your Samuel will come. Fulfill your own vows to the Lord if you've made any. Stay steadfast in the place of prayer. Don't give up. And I'm certain that you'll move from where you are to where you ought to be on this journey. And I'll see you on the next episode.